There is a version of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore tourbillon chronograph, carved entirely from solid 950 platinum, carrying a retail price of nearly $314,000. The watch is built with the presence of a vault, yet it houses micromechanics that operate at the limit of physical tolerance. It functions as a heavy-duty container for some of the most sensitive engineering in horology. You can see this reflected on the dial. The heavy geometric bezel and thick industrial screws sit directly on top of intricate exposed mechanics, trapping delicate high horology inside a tank-like shell. To understand how these two extremes ended up in the same case, we have to go back to 1989. Audemars Piguet assigned a 22-year-old designer named Emmanuel Gueit to modernize their flagship Royal Oak. Gueit took the famously elegant profile of the original watch and blew it up. When it debuted at Baselworld in 1993, the case measured a massive 42 millimeters. He added chunky pushers and left a thick rubber gasket highly visible right beneath the octagonal bezel. The traditional Swiss watchmaking establishment was stunned. Gerald Genta, the legendary designer who created the original Royal Oak 2 decades earlier, publicly condemned the new design and reportedly called Gueit a murderer for ruining his masterpiece. The industry quickly branded it the Beast. But that aggressive, brute force shell slowly evolved into the premier vessel for Audemars Piguet's most delicate, high-end mechanical achievements. The turning point came when the watch found an audience far outside traditional collector circles. Italian collectors embraced the oversized dimensions, and it soon became a global symbol of masculine power. By the late 1990s, the Offshore was adopted by hip-hop royalty, star athletes, and action stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It became cultural armor. To prove this was a serious horological instrument, Audemars Piguet began utilizing the watch's massive internal volume to house extreme complications. This diagram compares a standard static escapement with a tourbillon. In a static escapement, gravity pulls down on the tiny regulating components, creating microscopic timing errors. A tourbillon places those components inside a continuously rotating cage to evenly distribute that downward pull and offset the effects of gravity. It is an incredibly delicate mechanism. Putting one inside a heavy-duty sports watch requires engineering tolerances that can withstand the vibrations of daily wear. We see the execution of this in the hand-wound caliber 2912, a dense, skeletonized movement built specifically to handle the demands of the Offshore. It generates an enormous 10-day power reserve, driven by these twin mainspring barrels feeding energy into the balance simultaneously. This animation illustrates a rare mechanism inside the 2912 called the Geneva stopwork. It is a distinct finger on a gear that allows the mainspring barrels to turn exactly 19.75 times before hitting a solid stop. This graph plots the resulting power output. The stopwork prevents overwinding and cuts the power before the weakest part of the spring is reached. This keeps the energy flowing to the tourbillon stable for all 10 days. The limits of this construction are occasionally tested by severe neglect, like a documented case of a rusted-out Offshore sent for restoration. Watchmakers disassembled the movement, using acid solutions and hand polishing to remove corrosion. They refabricated damaged parts from scratch and retooled the case to original tolerances. Once reassembled, the movement returned to its specified timing and water resistance. This indicates that even with its intricate internal complexity, the Offshore platform is robust enough to be fully restored from a state of total disrepair. 3 decades after the initial launch, Audemars Piguet introduced the 7th generation and 30th anniversary models of the Offshore line. The thick, aggressive bezel was shaved down significantly. The sapphire crystals were reshaped to mimic the octagonal geometry of the bezel itself, sitting flush with the case. To capitalize on this thinner profile, they completely skeletonized the dials, stripping away the solid metal face to expose the internal architecture. The tourbillon and chronograph were left completely visible to the naked eye. This represented a total inversion of the original design. The micromechanics that were historically hidden deep inside a protective case became the primary external focal point. The visual of a highly complicated floating movement had replaced the hulking metal armor as the primary status symbol for the brand. The Offshore defined a new standard for the luxury industry, where heavy-duty construction and hyper-precise rotating mechanics are integrated into a single machine.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.